and 157 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, and taken down to the arms room in the basement. It's a soundproof room, it's a restricted area, limited access. The access is for, like the platoon leader. And of course, the platoon leader is the prime suspect in the taking of our son's life. His name is Dallas Wayne Hart. And Richard was then um, stolen off of Fort Bliss and trafficked to Mexico for disposal because he was a whistleblower. And we are burning the midnight oil. We are 2 minutes away from the anniversary, here in South Carolina. But I think we can go ahead and really remember Vanessa Guillen. I was alerted to that today by somebody that posted a message, and I'm very grateful that they alerted me to Vanessa Guillen because I immediately said, wait a minute, it's the 6 year anniversary. It's a 6 year anniversary of finding her remains. And I looked it up to make sure, and sure enough, it is June 30th that they found her remains. Who are they? The animals. The animals and the linemen. They're the ones that found her remains. And so I really want to talk about that because there's so many similarities in both cases. And both Vanessa Guillen and Richard Halliday shared a chain of command, being under General Michael Xavier um, Garrett, Forcecom General, uh, over both Fort Bliss and Fort Hood. So I wanted to talk about so many things, the current events that are going on, and every day there's uh, breaking news, and more that comes from our investigation. So let's get started so I can see any comments. Okay. And thank you so much for joining after, 6 years, day in and day out, day in and day out. But it's that important. It's so important. And of course, for our family, for Richard, it's very, very important. And for our country, it's very, very important for our border security and all of they call them migrants. I would almost call them slaves, the way they have been treated, misled, deceived to come into a country illegally and then be exploited by the cartels like they have. This is not benevolence. This is not doing humanity any kindness. When you are um, asking of people or manipulating whole groups of people to come into a country illegally to commit crimes, because coming into a country illegally is committing a crime. That's not being nice. That's not being neighborly. That's setting them up for exploitation. That's setting them up for slavery. And sure enough, we know that 500,000 children, 500,000, they're saying 400 and something. I'm going to say 500,000 children were trafficked across that border as unaccompanied migrants, unaccompanied minor migrants. They were slaves. We know that many of the 146,000 that have been recovered were put in hotel rooms and were slaves to sexual perverts. Um, and these are children, y'all. These are children. and 700 times they were subjected to this kind of perverted sexual slavery. And so this is what I'm saying. Uh, there's many that came over. They had to give up one of their kidneys, right? This is organ harvesting slavery. They had to pay off um, uh, their coyotes, right? They had to pay their coyotes with work. This was a method for the cartel establishment to enslave people. That's what this is, and that's why they want this illegal migrant. This is very, very, very clear after 6 years of investigating this. And so, it's kind of like an upside down world. So if you have um, a president like President Trump that says, no, you cannot come illegally, then the people will say, oh, they're racist or whatever. And that wasn't the case at all. It's called coming over as a free individual, a free man, a free woman. Um, and you need, in order to do that, you have to come legally, right? You have to come legally. And so that nobody can exploit you and blackmail you and enslave you into a sex trade or for organ harvesting or for cheap labor or whatever. Um, because many of these people commit other crimes on top of it, like using other people's social security numbers and things like that. It's just a domino effect of other crimes. And so it really is the most inhumane um, slave, putting people into slavery that these leftists, I just call them, cartel operatives. They are transnational terroristic organizations, and they want cheap slave labor, and they want their perverted sexual whatever. They're just perverts or just totally vile and vulgar. And, you know, and we've read through many, many of FOIAs and through our investigations. And so you could go to some of the very first live streams that I did, and you would hear maybe a little bit different tone than once you've learned what's going on and the acts, the crimes against humanity that was going on at the border with these El Paso cartel conglomerate that is in alliance with the Sinaloa cartel, the El Chapo Sinaloa cartel. Well, all of them, and then the CJNG and La Linea and Tren de Aragua. Well, La Linea is part of the Juarez cartel, and yeah, on and on. But those are the major ones, Sinaloa and CJNG, and they're in El Paso. They are established in El Paso because we were late. We were late. And they have bank accounts and cars and a multitude of properties and businesses and everything like that. And they don't really use permits or licenses. They work outside of the law, okay? They operate, work is not the right word. They operate outside of the law. And and that's why they're terroristic organizations. And we see that a good example of that is the Plenitude Crematorium, transnational funeral home fraud operation that's tied to Purchase Funeral Homes, Grupo Purchase, and that's in El Paso and Juarez, back and forth, and you see that we have families right now that are marching on the street. Just reported, I just posted up about it. They are waiting and waiting and waiting for identification of the remains that were in that Plenitude crematorium, stacked up over 400. Now, the reported number is like 386, but because of all the skeletons and everything that were found after digging in the yard, and that number went up. And it's probably higher than what I'm saying, because remember, they started out with just a few, and then the number went up and up and up and up and up. So if you followed that case, you would see that they were really trying to put a lid on the count of bodies, because there were so many of them. And so I just say over 400 to be more accurate. But the point is that you only have not even 40%. I think it's more like 30% of those bodies have been identified. So you're talking, around 60, 70% that still need to be identified. And this is a year later. And families had to pay for the removal of their loved ones, the cremation of their loved ones, and they were fraud was committed against them, and they were given urns full of ground up, pulverized construction material, or animal ashes, or something like this. It was really sacrilegious. It's all sacrilegious. And we have evidence that, um, uh, this is where Richard's partial remains wound up. So we're part of those families, and we're waiting. We are waiting for the identification of these remains, right? Because we know that bodies were in uniform. We know that bodies showed sign of torture. We know this is a narco crematorium. We know that this funeral home fraud network is tied to Purchase Funeral Homes. And we also know that Purchase, being a big operator there in Chihuahua, Mexico, they have the freezers. What's being reported to us is the most likely, and we tend to believe it, that it is Purchase themselves that were given the contract to uh, house or refrigerate these bodies that were at Plenitude Crematorium. So the criminal group that caused the problem in the first place is the one that's keeping the evidence. Okay, keeping the evidence. That is what is being reported to us. Um, and this is, so the families, I just wanted to let them know, because they're like, why haven't the bodies been identified? Right? Why haven't those bodies been identified? What is going on? Well, when you have the criminal um, protecting the evidence, or keeping the evidence, they're not going to be that cooperative, are they? No. And so we are just as frustrated as these families, because we are also waiting for those remains to be identified. And it really is a reason to march, because the El Chapo fentanyl governor of Chihuahua, Maru Campos, her mother, who, I just want to say the mother is not just some little old lady, okay? She has a long history with the Pan Party. She she was a federal deputy, right? She was a federal deputy. She has served in the governments. And of course, she was the health minister um, for the previous administration, and then for her daughter's administration, or um, into that, yeah. well, I guess for the previous administration, I want to make sure I get all the dates right. But she was the one that oversaw these funeral homes and transfer of remains during the time that our son's remains were transferred over there. She was the one in charge of all that, along with the mortuary operations in in El Paso and on Fort Bliss. So she has a huge, and she's was in charge of the permits and the licensure and all kinds of contracts and uh, also inspections and that health measures were absolutely followed. And she didn't do that, did she, for Plenitude Crematorium? No, she didn't do it. It was rat infested, absolutely filthy, no potable water, no air condition. Um, and they were just piled up, y'all. They were just piled up, and no permits, so she is very complicit. So Maru Campos cannot have anything to do with this case, and yet there she is because her mother is absolutely complicit in this crime and should be arrested ASAP. ASAP. The question is, what does her mother, since her mother is pan party, and the Arellano Caron, the Purchase Arellano Caron family has been pan party, what has their association been in the past, in the Wayback Machine, right? In the Wayback Machine, and also with Frederico de la Vega, Foster, no, not Foster, Frederico de la Vega Matthews, right? Very big in the pre-party, and of course they're an alliance. But these were big, I guess, patriarchs, matriarchs in this whole pan pre-party in Chihuahua, Mexico. So of course they knew each other. Of course they had events together and everything. And so there is, like this family atmosphere. And they were up to no good. They were up to no good to allow this transnational, um, very filthy, very sacrilegious crime to be going on. And we know that they were targeting mothers for their babies. We know that they were targeting for organ harvesting. They were also the narco body dumping ground for whistleblowers and um, anybody that I guess wanted to expose uh, the the activities of the cartel, the illicit activities of the cartel that, maybe not everybody really liked seeing. Children getting trafficked and women disappearing. When you hear and it's just and I don't mean to. It's just that you can just cry on all of this. It's just you can just really cry because so many women were missing. And when we went over there like 3 dozen times, it's all on my Google. We went over there so many times, and people told us that, they had missing family members and um, missing daughters, right? Missing women. And, when you find out that they were targeting women, when they were targeting um, for for babies and for organ harvesting and all of that, and they had this narco crematorium, it makes you want to throw up, right? It makes, because you piece together the puzzle pieces, and then they're slow to identify these remains. Well, how many are them are the women that were missing, right? How many were are or which one is Richard? This is what needs to be identified, and they're slow walking it. And so I'm very happy to see the families march march, and we're doing everything we can to support them. Of course, we're supporting them from afar, but we are absolutely filing everything that we know to back them up, to legally back them up, to be the boots on the ground. That is uh, really important, and I hope that you can back them up too. And I think that's why they're really fearless. And that goes to Lalo Almeida, right? The whole situation with Eduardo Lalo Almeida. Here he is going into a meeting, and he was assaulted, I believe he was assaulted. He's up to no good. He's the inner circle cartel with Mauro Campos, of course, the financial cartel launderer or whatever for Cesar Duarte, who's now in prison for mainly for embezzlement. Um, so that fits right into his part with the Cesar Duarte criminal activity. And that, and we can confirm to you right now that Lalo Almeida is just the inner circle with the Maru Campos. And he walks in to this meeting after he gets caught, in 2025. He owns millions of millions to the taxpayer. Um, and, it, you know, People are sick and tired of him. They're sick and tired of the cartel. They're sick and tired of being robbed. They're sick and tired of their women and their children going missing, of the men that speak up, hanging from highways, you know, or being found dismembered and things like this. They're tired. And so I think they confronted him, and he pulled out his gun. And you know what? You know what was really telling about in the video? And I should have brought that up. The video, I don't think I have it ready, but let me just be a storyteller. What I saw in the video was a very courageous people, a very courageous people. They did not cower at all. When he pulled out the gun, they didn't run away from him. They didn't hide behind a table or a chair or a door or leave or even leave the room. They didn't. Even the women, they all confronted him. They absolutely were fearless and confronted him. And of course, then he was arrested. He was let go, and I can show you the um the picture of his license. I think that is there he is. This is a picture of his license to carry. Now, how in the world does Lalo Almeida get a license to carry a weapon? Okay. He breaks every requirement by Mexico in order to have a license to carry. Because he's a criminal and criminals cannot get a license to carry. And yet, here he is. Here he is. Now, you, so uh, there is this connection with Maru Campos and her administration not requiring permits or licenses, or in this case, getting a license. So there's just different laws for you and me, and different laws for the likes of Lalo Almeida. um you know we if we have a business, we have to get the permit, we have to get the liquor license. We go if this cartel, if they have a business, they don't have to get an inspection or a permit or a license or whatever. And then if we want to get a carry for a weapon, they might give us a runaround, whereas they give this criminal a license to carry. It's just uh, this is what a narco controlled government does. Okay, and it's not right, and we're not putting up with it. It's like the Plenitude crematorium families; they're just not putting up with it. And this meeting that Lalo Almeida was at, and the people were so courageous because they're not putting up with it. Let's say they're farmers. They confronted him. They're not afraid anymore, and so that means that their power is diminishing, diminishing, which comes into the topic of Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. So you have the U.S. Defense Secretary, the Secretary of War, visiting White Sands Missile Range. Now, he already went and visited the border, and put together, and I have that too here, so let's go to it, because I think this is really important. Um, in April of 2025, if you can see my cursor, I made it big. In April of 2025, he established the New Mexico National Defense Area. Okay, so he went and visited there and at Santa Teresa, which is very interesting because that's where the Santa Teresa jetport is, international jetport. It's right there on the border, and he went there and established the New Mexico National Defense Area. He said that he held up bilingual warning signs, delivering a clear message. Any illegal attempt to enter that zone is entering a military base, a federally protected area. You will be detained. You will be interdicted by U.S. troops and Border Patrol working together. Okay, so now you know what this New Mexico National Defense Area is. It's that border area that now he designated that becomes a military base, a military base. Okay, so that was in April of 2025. And so that was a clear message to the cartels that they could not operate as normal, because this includes, I'm sure, I have to look at that map, but it includes these tunnels, right? These tunnels that connect Mexico to the United States, Juarez to El Paso. Um, so now, just recently, he visited again, this time to my birthplace. Yeah, that's where I was born, White Sands Missile Range. That's where he went in New Mexico, Donna Ana County. Why? Because that's where the drone testing is. And not only that, it is where the laser testing is. And I have a picture of that. It kind of looks like Wall-E, doesn't it? Looks like Wall-E, like they already had a heads up on what these laser machines look like. You know that movie Wall-E? Anyway, that's what it kind of looks like to me. But this is a laser, and there's microwave weapons and things like that. And what it does is counter the drones, because we know that Mexico was providing drones, don't we? Because of the treasonous treaty that Maru Campos signed with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. And Greg Abbott's like, oh, yeah, we can have those drones, access to drones in Mexico. These are no, no, you cannot have rogue CIA, FBI, DEA, ATF, CBP, and DPS. officers and agents having access to drones, right? Cameras and drones. And that's what this treasonous treaty, part of it, gave them. So were they up to no good? Because we know that they had no loyalty to the United States and they had no loyalty to Mexico. They were absolutely assaulting both countries' sovereignty. We know that. The same thing with Maru Campos. I mean, they're calling what she's doing a genocide, right? That's what they're calling with the whole Plenitude crematorium. And those aren't my words; those are, Mexican family victims that are saying this. But through this treasonous treaty, now, she was going to give these rogue, really traitors, um, uh, access to drones, and this is the cartel. This is absolutely cartel operatives that impersonate. Uh, well, they become, while, but they don't honor their oaths. CIA, FBI, ATF, they're infiltrators. They're infiltrators. I think that's a better word. Just like Alejandro de la Vega, total infiltrator, right? It's their personal gain that they're interested in. And they have very little character. So this is what this device that looks like Wally. That's a laser that can take down drones. This is what was demonstrated, among other weapons, to Pete Hegseth and other individuals traveling with him. Um, uh, I wrote it here. I found it. Let me see. Um, did I not? Did I not? Right. Oh, yeah. Emil Michael. Okay, so he's the Pentagon Chief Technology Officer, Emil Michael. He also attended. And so, they are, uh, and they stated that what they wanted to do was to protect the border. So I don't think Mexico, even though they've deployed like 10,000 troops to that border region, um, uh, you know, well, I don't know. I don't know, but I don't think, from their language and everything, that they want to attack Mexico. I think they would have done that already. I think that they are working with Mexico, clearly, to rid Mexico of the grip of the cartel. So, and the cartel are on both sides. Okay, you have the El Paso cartel in alliance with the Sinaloa and the CJNG and others, right? So they're on both sides of the border. These are just it doesn't matter. They are a terroristic organization, be it some Americans or be it some Mexicans or really the Mormon faction. The Mormon faction, which that would not surprise me one bit. Um, so, yeah, so that I think is a huge message, why the people at the border are not afraid anymore of the likes of Lalo Almeida, right? Pete Hegseth has their back. President Trump has their back. And so that's a very good day. I put up this video. Let's see if it plays.
See, and the answer is absolutely, we do.
No cameras inside at the Cobra's lair, where soldiers lived in their deepest fear. A basement dark, a room locked tight, where Richard lay out of sight. The arms room calls, a deathly cue. A red seal secured, obscured the crime scene's view. 24/7, no honor resigns. The cries call out, though the door's locked tight. Who will answer for that final night?
To see, they fail to care, as Richard Halliday laid so bare. A struggle silenced, an attempt to erase. Leaders' crime, CID seal the place. The arms room's blood, it paints the floor, where soldiers die so they can traffic more. Smugglers of Fort Bliss, a leader's shame. No cameras, no guard where Cobra strikes its claim. Where soldiers die in secrets, hiding, building 24/7, no honor resides. Building 24/7, a renovated cover-up died and leaders fell. The scales are tipping, time's running out. To those involved, do you feel that doubt? Richard Halliday, let your name be heard.
Cameras caught the seal, look close, truth won't hide. In the shadows of the past, justice will collide.
As the scales are tipping, there's nowhere to run. The guilty will face it,
the reckoning's begun.
I wonder if I played the very beginning.
Do we have an emergency? And the answer is absolutely, we do.
Yes, okay. Let me see. Put that on.
Did anybody see the?
Oops. Because I want to lead into Vanessa Guillen from that and compare, because those two cases are very similar. Here it is. So today it's already 12:36 here. So we are remembering Vanessa Guillen. Her remains were found by animals, by linemen that did not ignore the animals. So utility workmen, right? Now, she she lost her life. I have to be very careful how I say things, but you know what I mean. In the arms room, okay? In the arms room with a hammer. And she was stuffed in a pelican case. It's a trunk. It's a trunk that the military use, and it's a hard plastic, right, that they use to deploy with. And I'm very familiar with them, right, from our family history. Uh, and she was stuffed in that, put in a back of a car, and they traveled to the Leon River. This is an area of Texas where I grew up. I grew up in Temple. I taught school in Killeen. Um, got married on Fort Hood, believe it or not, in the chapel on Fort Hood. Um, so I'm very familiar with this area. Uh, and she was taken out close near Leon River, where they dug a foxhole and they dismembered her. They burned her. They put the remains in the foxhole, covered it with lime, and then with cement, okay, with cement, and then with dirt and leaves and branches and things like that. She was never meant to be found. That's the point. And Texas EquiSearch, her family, rallied like incredible. I remember it. I remember it. I watched it and prayed, um and it was that family, the Guillen family, that inspired us to organize ourselves to get into our vehicles and drive all the way to Texas, to El Paso, to live there, to rally. It was the Guillen family that inspired us, that really taught us what to do by watching them. Um, and of course, um, this is so emotional because uh, Vanessa Guillen's family got Texas EquiSearch. So that's Tim Miller. And we, of course, called Tim Miller. We called Texas EquiSearch to ask them to help. And they said that they would, but they could only help if the CID would give them permission. Okay. In Vanessa Guillen's case, they gave permission. But what happened is when we talked to Texas EquiSearch, they told us that because they have horses and they have been searching for missing people. It's a long story how they got started, but they are just experts at searching. And they got on their horses and they were searching for Vanessa. They found another soldier in this, and they found the Pelican case. Okay, they found the Pelican case that had been melted, burned up. Okay, and when that happened, CID terminated the search and terminated the the permission for Texas EquiSearch to search for Vanessa Guillen. Okay, that really happened. They said stop. And Texas EquiSearch legally had to stop the search when they were just so close. They were so close. They knew it. And I was told by Texas EquiSearch that they cried. They cried about the whole situation. They stopped on a bridge right close near that area and they prayed over that area. And I believe that it was their prayer that inspired these animals and these linemen to find Vanessa Guillen's remains. It was just, uh, it's just, it's so surreal to tell you that on a live stream because it is so real. It happened. There's no way I could make any of this stuff up. And her body was found just days before they took Richard's life, but Richard was also um, forcibly removed and taken to the arms room. And the arms room, when all this started, I didn't realize how significant the arms room is because it has limited access. That means it's not doesn't have a lot of people walking in and unexpectedly. Um, it is a place that uh, have to have a authority to get into, and so it is also a soundproof room. Um, and then it has limited, I don't think any cameras, right? So, so it is the ideal place to commit these crimes. And so both Vanessa Guillen and our son Richard lost their life in the arms room, one being on Fort Hood, one being on Fort Bliss. And then the tampering with the remains, the stealing the body off of Fort Bliss, off of Fort Hood, and then trying to destroy the evidence. And in Richard's case, um, they trafficked him internationally. Um, and so that made it even more difficult um, for us. And then the whole cover up. Now, this is the general. Okay, this is the general. Um, he is an absolute criminal, and he needs to be court-martialed and held accountable for what he did. Because when you understand the contact that we had with him and everything that happened, he under and Sean Bernabe, it's just it's so criminal. So I really wanted to remember Vanessa Guillen, um, and from what I know and understand from the family, they don't feel like they got total justice from the whole case. Okay. Politics happened with her case, um, but they don't feel like they got full justice, real justice for those responsible for what they did to her and the cover up. Uh, and I'm absolutely convinced that they didn't and that we haven't yet. But we are working very hard day in and day out to make it happen because this cannot go without being addressed. And those that did this, because they're cartel infiltrators and those that aided and abetted the cartel. And the cartels that are involved are terroristic organizations, transnational terroristic organizations, which mean that the cover up those in the chain of command that covered this up, and even civilians aided and abetted a terroristic organization. So this is crimes against our nation, absolutely uh, uh, over and above the crime that they committed against Vanessa and Richard, and against our families, but it's against our country. And in our son's case, it includes Mexico. And of course, I believe in Vanessa Guillen's case, it includes Mexico too, because not the sovereignty of Mexico, I would say the cartels in Mexico. Okay. So this is cartels on both sides of the border that have no regards for the United States or for Mexico, for the sovereign countries. They don't have any regard for the laws, for the constitutions. No. So I can't say they're acting for the United States or acting for Mexico. I can say that they're acting against them, and that this is then an act of war. It is really an act of war against both countries. So I think that our two countries need to come together, um, uh, to work for um, the eradication of these cartel infiltrators and treasonous. Look at how much harm they've done. It's just crimes against humanity. So, yeah, and I'll get to all your comments, but yeah, it is really um, their organization, their criminal organization, is very, very deceptive. Okay, because they will put on a sheep's mask, right? Or a benevolent, like, we want to help you. We want to help you. We're so nice. We're so good, you know. And they will even look, the Hearts had heart childcare. Okay. Uh, and, then they absolutely have demonic and criminal intent behind their carrot, like, they'll put up a carrot for you. Oh, you're pregnant, you're not married, you have no protection. They always go for the most vulnerable, the orphans, um, the unaccompanied migrants, the women that have no protection, that have become pregnant. um, you know, that's who they really go for. Um, Very weak and vulnerable population groups, and so that makes them even worse, doesn't it? It makes them even worse. So let me unplug this. I should have done that. So yeah, this is why we have to keep going, because um, they will keep targeting the vulnerable population. I Am Vanessa Guillen is a good documentary on her story. I recommend anyone to watch it. Yeah, and I watched it. I watched it when it first came out. Uh, I didn't really want to, and then I watched it, and of course Donna Martin is in it. Donna Martin was the provost marshal at the time. Donna Martin is absolutely a criminal, absolutely a criminal. It was all a cover up. I can tell you that right now. Um, from everything that I know, it was absolutely a cover up. Donna Martin came to general. She even got a star out of it. Became a 3-star general. Came to Fort Bliss for Task Force Find Richard Halliday, and uh, with Sean Bernabe, they came out of uniform. She came out of uniform. The Army came out of uniform to Task Force Find Richard Halliday, out of uniform and without an operations order. It's called an op ord. It was all a dog and pony show. So much money they spent for nothing, just to deceive us. So it wasn't for nothing. It was to deceive our family, to to check off boxes, to say, oh, see, we tried to help, we did something. But they absolutely knew that Richard was not alive, because they gave us his weapon. They gave us um, his personal items. And so if someone is just missing, you don't have the authority to give their personal rifle and ammunition to the next of kin. Okay. So they knew, and she knew, and I know she knew because she texted me um before January 6th, on January 5th, believe it or not, 2021. So she had some kind of like moment, I guess, like, okay, if I don't do something, God's really going to send me to hell. But it wasn't, no, she's a real criminal. She's a really real criminal. Um, so I can tell you, that I Am Vanessa is, um, really helped us, inspired us to rally. But that there was a lot more information that people in there could have given, and they were in deception mode. But the documentary really did inspire us to go to Fort Bliss, organize first. we really get permission and organize and get people together and get, rent out a house and everything like that. So, yeah, and that was what inspired us. So I really want to thank the Guillen family from the bottom of our heart. And I'm so glad that they did get Vanessa's Guillen's body. And I don't think that pain will ever leave them because it's just so bad. Tim Miller said it was the most sophisticated grave site that he has ever encountered. Okay. And that was then reiterated in the news because he did say that in the news also. Um, so yeah, uh, and I'm we're working really hard to really finish getting the accountability because it's connected. It's all connected. Okay, is there, let's see, did I cover everything? Oh, I wanted to talk about um, beautiful Glennon Oakley Jr. If you haven't had a chance to watch this video, it's very hard to find. If you Google, it all comes up with other cover up stuff from him. They really targeted him after this. They targeted him like they targeted Richard. They targeted us. And who are they? Those that are in alliance with the cartel, with the traffickers, with the organized terroristic criminals. And you can tell because he is like so confident here. If you haven't watched it, please watch it. This is his testimony on the day, August 3rd, 2019, of the Walmart mass shooting. Um, it's just, you can just tell his personality. The very next day, he was in tears, he was shaking, because they immediately targeted him and just bullied the hell out of him. In April of 2020, April 8th of 2020, he was found unalive in his barracks room, just shortly also before Richard, July 20th, 2020. Um, so I don't believe the um, the narrative of the mainstream media when it comes to the Walmart mass shooting because the evidence absolutely confirms it was something else. But what Glennon Oakley Jr. says is right on the money to the evidence. So that's why he was such a threat to this Maiella, the Maiella connection, the DA's office. Because don't forget, the DA's office is absolutely complicit because they liked Beto O'Rourke. See, they are absolutely complicit in aiding and abetting and this pushing out the false narrative when they knew that Patrick Crusius's family was right there in their own office. Okay, in the DA's office, Michael G. Maiella worked in their own office with them, along with them, and they were pushing out this narrative that Patrick Crusius just, randomly picked El Paso. He had no connection to El Paso, and his family's right there in the DA's office that is spewing the false narrative to target President Trump, to sabotage the 2020 election. Absolutely. So let me see, Laura, thank you so much for coming on. And your prayers and everything that you do. And now I want to read your statements. That's why we can't find jobs because the owners only hire slaves. I mean immigrants. Then if you don't flirt, either manager no hours. Then I think that's ending. I think that's ending because I know I like economics. I'm trying to keep up with all the changes in economics, and I think things are changing. So I hope for the better. It looks like for the better. Then they'll tell you to do OnlyFans or, yeah, they try to groom you, right? They groom you, um, and try to manipulate. I wonder who's in charge of the shelter. And I saw that with Belen Rocha. They really were grooming her, and Richard was like, they say they respect you. They say they'll support you. But they don't. They don't. Don't fall for it. He was trying to warn her, and and she her response to him was, "You're weird. You're weird." No, he's respectable. He's he has character, right? He had character, and that is to respect women, right? To respect women. I know because I'm his mother. I taught him that. Um, Yeah, so looks like Texas and Chihuahua are making their own country. Yes, that's what they were doing. They were colonizing that area. And I think into Texas, I really it was very dangerous how close they were getting with Greg Abbott. And I can tell you this that what's happening in Texas is there's so many investigations going on right now. And so I can tell you that. I can confirm to you that there is multiple investigations going on in Texas, and it is in regards to all of this going on. So that's important. Um, yeah, one person asked, I wonder if Oakley knew Richard. I don't know. I just know that Richard was reporting on the Walmart mass shooting. Um, yeah, and I knew that Richard knew of Oakley because everybody did, and the retaliation against him. And Richard was being retaliated to. They were being retaliated against uh, pretty much at the same time. At the same time. It's not pretty much at the same time. So, yeah, it's it's very clear they have a lot in common as well. Okay, so I mean, there's just so much going on, and I hope that I covered that for everybody. Um, there's no doubt where uh, that Richard's life was taken in the arms room, in the line of duty for standing up against the cartels, whistleblowing against the cartels, and of course, President Trump recognizing that is 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 confirmation. So thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you, Laura. God bless you too. And